guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is an entitled people story. It was a hot summer day in the midst of the pandemic in mid-2020 when this all began. As a 29-year-old homeowner, I was proud to have purchased a house from my uncle in 2019. However, my uncle warned me that the neighborhood had a homeowners association, HOA, but he himself was not a member. The deal he offered me was too good to pass up, and I became the proud owner of a house in an HOA neighborhood that wasn't part of the HOA. Shortly after I moved in, I received an unexpected visit from an older woman with short graying blonde hair, a heavily made-up face, and a gift basket. She introduced herself as the president of the HOA and asked to come in and help me fill out some forms. However, I was not a member of the HOA, and I knew exactly what she was trying to do. I bluntly stated that I had no intention of joining the HOA, which visibly upset her. She claimed that all new homeowners were required to join, but I knew this was a lie, and I made it clear that I would not pay any dues or fines. The woman left in a huff, but I expected to receive fines in the mail. Instead, I received letters reminding me to mow my lawn and sweep my driveway, which I was happy to do as they were routine household chores. However, my non-membership status quickly became the talk of the town, and many neighbors made it clear that they did not like me because of it. I didn't let it bother me, though. I was happy to be a part of the community, even if I wasn't a member of the HOA. Early in 2020, I received word from a friend that people were buying large quantities of disinfectant, toilet paper, and hand sanitizer due to the pandemic. I decided to be proactive and ordered 8 large packs of toilet paper, a case of 20 bottles of hand sanitizer, 3 boxes of disposable latex gloves, a couple of boxes of disposable face masks, and a case of 20 large cans of name-brand disinfectant spray. I was concerned about theft, so I set the delivery to require a signature upon arrival. Several neighbors saw me receiving the packages, and I continued to purchase more supplies when I saw them in stores. I knew that friends and family would need these items eventually, and I wanted to be prepared. As expected, toilet paper and cleaning supplies became scarce, and many people were fighting over them. However, I had plenty of supplies to share, and I did so with friends and family when they needed them. Unfortunately, some of my neighbors were less understanding. They knocked on my door and asked to buy my supplies or begged for handouts, but I refused. They made it clear that they would never accept me until I joined the HOA, and I didn't want to be taken advantage of by my neighbors. Later, the HOA president showed up at my door and demanded that I share my supplies with my neighbors as an example of being a good neighbor. I knew that even if I was a member of the HOA, I wouldn't be required to share my supplies, so I refused. One day while I was at work, my security cameras alerted me that someone was breaking into my house. I watched in horror as a woman in a spandex suit and a hockey mask broke open my back door and began throwing my supplies out into my yard, where her children were picking them up. I called the police immediately, and when I arrived home, the woman was being led away in handcuffs. It turned out that she was none other than the HOA president, who had taken it upon herself to steal from me. I pressed charges against the HOA president, and she was sentenced to 6 months in jail and probation for breaking and entering and theft. Her husband called me to apologize for his wife's actions, and he informed me that he was planning to file for a divorce as this wasn't the first time she had gotten into trouble with the law. Child Protective Services also got involved as she had been using her children to help steal from me. He was planning to file for full custody of the children in the divorce. After this incident, a new HOA president was elected to replace the previous one. The new president was much more understanding and accommodating, and there were no more issues between me and the HOA. However, there were still some hard feelings between me and some of my neighbors, but I chose to ignore them and focus on being a good neighbor to those who were friendly to me. Fast forward to now, over a year later, and I had a chance encounter with the former HOA president, who was now working as a grocery bagger at a supermarket in another city. As soon as she saw me, she scowled and refused to look at me again the entire time I was there. It was clear that karma had caught up with her, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction knowing that justice had been served. The next story is titled "You're a Manager. You Should Know the Rules." This goes back to when I first got the job I have today. I was a high school student at the time. I don't know if this rule exists elsewhere, But here, high school students are not permitted to be at work past 8 p.m. By the time I got here, the place had had at least 6 different managers in the past 2 years. I had no idea why until the current one at the time came along and scheduled me to work the whole evening shift, which lasts until 11 p.m. I calmly told her that this is illegal, but she had none of it. "You are going to work until 11 p.m. or you will not be working at all," she said. I simply agreed and went about my day. Things start to get strange once 8 p.m. rolls by. My parents are expecting me to come home, but I'm still here. Much to my surprise, my dad drives up here, finds the manager, and asks what the hell is going on. Once she explains, my dad comes to me and asks why I didn't tell her this is not okay. I told him that she blew me off when I tried to, and that's when he told me to keep doing what I'm doing. It was at this moment that I figured out what my father was planning. A couple of days later, he reported her for making a student work later than what is legally permissible. She wasn't removed from her position, surprisingly, but she voluntarily stepped down a few weeks after the fact. And that, my friends, is how I figured out why this place seems to have a new manager every other month. And of course, my working hours were reduced to comply with the law. The next story is titled "My Friend's Mom Pushed Me into a Table Saw." This happened 8 months ago. My friend, Keelan, and I work in a woodworking company. It's a pretty great job for me, as I love hands-on activity and creating things. Keelan, however, has more of a difficult time with it all. Which is completely fine as I help him with it. His mom and my mom aren't necessarily close, but both support me and him in our work. We're pretty young, so it helps with reassurance. But a few days before this incident, I started to realize that Keelan's mom never really acknowledged my work. Now that's not really a big deal to me as I don't require praise, but I do find it a bit weird as Kai's mom has apparently had a few racial incidents at her own work and I'm African. I was just assuming it's because she's afraid. I'm a pretty built guy and 6'6". Fast forward to Tuesday, and I'm working on a wooden chair that has taken me a few more attempts than wanted. The table saw I had been using to make clean cuts was pretty rusty from KY using it constantly. I headed out to the department to get a replacement and was a bit annoyed with KY not doing it himself. I came back and said, "Hey man, don't be afraid to change your equipment." And he rolled his eyes and just replied with a K. Which just annoyed me even more. I just pushed past it and continued. But minutes later, I heard KY laughing and I looked up to find him laughing at my cutting. This made me extremely upset as I've been working almost day and night while he only works 7 to 9 hours. This along with his mom recently coming into shop and laughing along with him. This got to me, and I walked over to KY and told him a few words that I shouldn't have. He immediately got defensive and pushed me back and I was about to strike back when his mom instantly joined in with him and intentionally pushed me to the left where the saw was. Stupidly, I left it on. As soon as I was pushed back, the back of my hand was shoved right into the saw causing a drizzle of blood to just gush everywhere and for my palm to be basically split in half with a huge gap between my pinky and ring finger. The shock kicked in and I instantly grabbed my hand and shouted for my mom who was on the other side of the shop. She immediately got an ambulance, and I was sent to the closest hospital. KY has been texting me almost every day apologizing for his mother. The only text from her was her saying that, "This was my fault and to not hurt her son." The next story is titled, "I'm not leaving here without the Wii." Yes you are. It's been over a decade since I worked in retail, but reading this sub lately has brought back so many memories and I thought I would start to share. I worked in a store selling DVDs, CDs, games, vinyl and a bunch of other entertainment-related stuff. This story took place the day after the launch of the Nintendo Wii. Our store had guaranteed that if you had pre-ordered a Wii by a certain date, then you would get one. If you had not pre-ordered, then it was first come, first served for the remaining stock. No one was able to place an order or reserve one after the release day as we could not guarantee when we would get stock back in. The day after the release, we had just opened, and I was standing by the entrance of the door to greet customers when this big angry-looking guy comes charging through the door straight up to me. Customer. Do you have any Nintendo Wiis in stock? Me. Hi, I'm sorry we sold out of the stock we had yesterday. On hearing this, the customer stamped his foot and slammed his shopping bags against his side. I knew at that point drama was about to unfold. Customer. Right, well I want to pre-order one. Me. I'm sorry, we can no longer take pre-orders as it's now after release day and we are unable to take orders as we cannot guarantee when we will receive stock back in since the product is in such high demand. Customer. That's a lie. Me. What? Customer. You are lying to me. I was in here 2 weeks ago and was told if I pre-ordered I was guaranteed one on the day of release. At this point, I'm thinking maybe I've misunderstood, and he has in fact pre-ordered, so I make an attempt at clarifying. Me. Oh, are you here to collect a pre-order? Do you have your order slip and receipt? Customer. No, I don't have a slip. You should have one for me because I inquired about wanting one weeks ago. Either give me one now or order one for me. My son wants one. Me. That's not how it works, unfortunately. We only pre-order with a deposit. If you have not paid a deposit, then we do not have a pre-order for you. I cannot order you one either, as our system will not let us. Customer. This is ridiculous. Get me a manager right now, as you are obviously incapable of sorting this mess out. I'm not leaving here without the Wii. As angry as this guy already was, he was about to get even angrier as I now had to inform him that I was in fact the manager on duty and the only one around. I was a supervisor who did opening and closing. Supervisors were designated managers on duty when there were no real grown-ups around. The guy flipped out, pointing his finger in my face, calling me a liar, telling me there is no way some little girl was a manager. Just as I was starting to worry this guy was about to physically assault me, something wonderful happened. I felt something brush over the top of my shoulder from behind, and suddenly the customer's face dropped and he was being dragged towards the door. Unbeknown to me, our security guard had just come on shift and was just entering the shop floor when he heard the customer screaming at me. He walked straight up from behind me, grabbed the guy by his neck and dragged him outside backwards, telling him, "You're done." Once outside, the guy stood between me and the security guard, almost foaming at the mouth with rage for a good minute before turning and storming out of sight. The next story is titled "A Guest Committed Suicide Last Night at Our Hotel," and the guest next to him is being a huge a-hole about the whole thing. So, for reference, I work as a front office manager now in a large city. Saturday nights are almost always sold out now, even if nothing is going on in the area. It was already a busy night and I only had one agent at the front desk along with me. Just before third shift starts, I get a call from the police asking if we have someone staying at the hotel. I was kind of confused because usually if we get any activity from the police they just stop by the front desk. They don't really call in advance, or most cases we would call them if anything. Anyway, the cop on the phone is like, "What room is this guy in?" I give him the room number, and before I can even ask why, he hangs up. A few moments later I have police rushing through the door with a claw, which I had never seen before, but I guess it's used to break doors down. They tell me to follow them with the master key. We can't get in the room because he has the latch over the door, so they start breaking the door down, also because the eng on duty had no idea how to do anything and was basically no help at all. The police are trying to bang this door down for about 10 minutes with no luck from the claw. Eventually the fire department arrives with some sort of drill and unscrews the bolts. They get inside and the guest is dead, like really dead, like a few hours dead, so they don't even try to shock him or do anything. It's really sad, and he's lying on the bed just lifeless. Everyone in the hall can basically see inside now because the door is busted down and on the ground. I try to get people back in their rooms, but y'all know how people are, they want to see what's going on. Once the police say we need to do a criminal investigation and have to wait for a team to come, I'm like, okay, I'll be down at the front desk, call me if you need me. I get down to the front desk and there's a couple down there super pissed off. I ask the husband how I can assist him and he's like, "I have been calling the front desk and no one is answering. No one is telling me what's going on." I'm just thinking to myself like, yeah, no one is answering the phone because you see me busy with the police. There is only one other girl here and she has a huge lack of check-ins. Apparently this guy is next door to the guy who died. He starts telling me it's ridiculous no one can answer the phone, that he thought he was in danger because the police are banging on the door next to him, and on top of this he's upset because he is now late for an event he was supposed to be going to. I'm just thinking to myself like, wow, the guy next to you is dead and you're upset because of an inconvenience of being late to an event. Really? I just apologize to the guest, tell him he is not in any danger, and I can change him to a new floor. Today he comes down and wants to speak to the general manager. He feels his whole stay should be free because he was inconvenienced by this whole situation. What an idiot. Anyways, that was a really hard night last night. My first death in my 8 years in hospitality. Hope. The next story is titled "A Guest Just Had the Strangest Breakdown in the Lobby and I'm Not Even Mad." So, I'm checking this girl in who is in town for business, and as usual her company is paying for her stay. This lady was already short and kind of impolite, But I don't sweat it, it's 9 o'clock, she has bags under her eyes, she probably is exhausted from travel. I make small talk, which she barely partakes in, but mentions she has driven for hours from the next major city over from one of our other properties because of a sudden transfer. Bingo. Her company is moving her all over the place on short notice. I go to method of pay and get an alert that the card on file the company left is expired. I had to break the news. I'm so sorry ma'am, but the card on file we were given is expired. Is there any way you can get a hold of them and maybe we can work something out? I just need a valid card. That did it. She broke. She turns around. Pauses. And starts clapping. She clapped loud and she clapped proud. She clapped all the way out of the lobby. I paused for a moment and thought if I should be angry. But, you know what? No. She released her anger in a physical manner, rather than directing it at me or anyone else. You let that anger out, girl. You do you.